What's the worst scandal to happen at your school? The principal slept with a student and his nudes and sexts were leaked. People's willingness to voluntarily collect electronic receipts that incriminate them astounds me. It's a good thing, since it makes it easier to catch those cocky dumbuses. Freshman year, a junior accused the pet teacher of sexually assaulting her after hours in the locker room. He was put on leave and eventually got off on a technicality. Senior year, there was a freak snowstorm in April, during which the quietest and nicest stoner in our class went missing. A day later they found his car in a ditch. And a week later, when the snow melted, they found his body. He'd crashed down, in his presumed high-af state, gotten out to walk for help with no coat on. He eventually found a telephone pole and sat down against it to rest and was believed to have frozen to death in the storm. Seeing his mom at her only child's funeral still haunts me. That's really sad. Can't find other words. Some students broke into a local elderly reverend's home to rob him, thinking he was away. He sadly wasn't, and they proceeded to bludgeon him and his wife to death while they were sleeping with baseball bats and beer bottles. They were caught pretty quickly, and although their names legally couldn't be published because they were minors, everyone including the local media knew who committed the crime. Media caused a circus at our school for weeks, harassing any student for comment. Many did because they thought it was cool. Although these three kids, 13, 14, 15, were known to cause trouble, no one ever suspected they would be capable of a double homicide. Shocking to say the least. There was a kid whose girlfriend brought a knife into school and planned to kill herself in the bathroom. He knew her locker combination, so he took the knife and hid it in his, so she wouldn't do it and wouldn't get busted. Someone snitched on him and he got expelled for having a knife on campus. Whole town was pissed. A male gym teacher did land some girls volleyball players. Principal got fired for threatening teachers if they didn't produce enough A's and driving a grade inflation scandal. That and the usual drugs and such. The first kid sounds like a good guy. Didn't deserve that at all. Schools can be dumbuses sometimes, I guess. Yeah. He just didn't want her to hurt herself. And if he'd reported her to the staff she would have been expelled. I get that rules are rules. But sometimes you've gotta make exceptions. What? School administrators making a problem they involve themselves in worse? Say it ain't so. In all seriousness, I've never had a good experience with admin staff. One time, a kid came out as gay to a teacher because he was being bullied. And as a teacher the poor dude had to report the threats of violence to his supervisor. Of course the admin team, in their infinite wisdom, decided the parents needed to know the kid was gay. 2 weeks later the kid was homeless when his parents kicked him out. I didn't know him personally, but I heard he got a place to live from some generous soul somewhere in town. Shockingly common treatment by his parents. Unfortunately, glad he found a place to stay. When I was in 5th grade, the male teacher I'd had in 4th grade was fired for helping a high school cheerleader undress. Looking back, he was a creeper. Edited to I was wrong. It was a 10-year-old. Just found it. Close bracket. That's quite a big step up. One year in exams days they were trying to add a new method to prevent cheating, where a man from the administration comes to every class before every exam and collects students' phones while sticking a sticker with a number on each phone and giving the same sticker to the student so he can get his phone after school without anyone taking someone else's phone that looks alike or something. This was working at first and a bit preventing cheating until one day some guy sneaked into our high school and came as the man who collects the phones while he wasn't. He stole the whole high school phones and went lol. Holy shit, haha, imagine the thrill of going classroom to classroom in disguise, stealing phones. You reckon the real inspector was in on it? Probably no. There were multiple inspectors, so that everyone starts their exams on time. If a real inspector came and asked people for their phones and they said someone else came and took them, he'd think that another inspector just collected from his class by mistake, and that's what happened. He just said, oh alright, good luck with the exam, and went to the next class. A kid in my senior year short story class, who sat directly behind me, was charged with the stabbing, beheading and burning of one of his friends/drug dealer. I remember the day like it was yesterday. Sitting in my short story class when my teacher came in. in tears because she just heard the news. Students didn't find out about it until later. I actually have a friend who testified in his trial because he purchased the murdering materials at the hardware store she worked at. Crazy, man. Did some googling. Is this in Michigan? Sure is. We had a computer teacher slash football assistant coach who was just blasted all day. Had so many DUIs he had to get rides to work. But was the cousin of the superintendent, so he kept his job. Let's just say that when he crashed a student's car in the parking lot because he convinced them to let him borrow it, that was the beginning of the end of it. It was a small town. The scandal is that the super tried to cover it up by trying to convince the kid to take the heat for it. To no one's surprise, the kid was not convinced. They let him stay on as super for another 2 years. I would have taken a huge bribe, then reported them for both. The lunch lady was having sex with students and buying them alcohol. This happened at my high school as well. Lunch lady looked a lot like Tim Tebow. Student brutally murdered his parents. He was a friend and co-captain of the soccer team. His mom was my English teacher. This one is incredibly sad. Would it be okay if I get more information as far as the school so I can read articles on it? It was a long time ago. 1980s. That's horrible. Seemed he was a good kid who wanted to do well, but his adoptive parents were abusive monsters. The poor kid was tortured into homicidal rage. I don't think it's ethical to limit social interaction with your child's friends, except if there's a problem between them. The only reason humans have evolved this far is through social interaction. Removing that deducts human qualities from that person. The 30-ish theater teacher ran off with a recent grad. I was kind of pals with the student during a play the spring before the scandal, and she hosted the cast party where in retrospect, they seemed a little cozier than appropriate. As much as I'm dying for the inside scoop, I can't imagine friending her on social media and asking, so what was up with you and Mr. It has to be done if you want to know. We all want to know. The caretaker killed 2 local girls and hid them in the school. He tried using the clay kiln to burn them. He later dumped them a few miles away. What the fuck, when was this? I'm guessing Op is referring to the Soham murders. It happened in August 2002. Thankfully, the guy who did it is rotting in prison. Unfortunately, his partner is now out of jail after only being charged with conspiring to pervert the course of justice. She's just as bad, and also deserved to rot for the rest of her life. Reminds me of Olga. Fucking hate the legal system sometimes. My middle school banned hugging and hand holding during course changes because it blocked the hall. In protest, all the 8th graders stood up and hugged each other during their lunch period. A bunch of students got detention. Made the cover of the Charlotte Observer. Edit. Thanks for the rewards all. I don't think I've gotten more than 100 likes or awards before, but please spend your money on other things. People are in need this holiday season. Dude. Everybody else talking about Pedersen murder and your big scandal is a big group hug. In middle school, 8th grade / early 2000s, one of the hot girls sent a couple nude pictures to her BF, and it wasn't long until half the school had them. Police ended up becoming involved to make sure any old copies were destroyed. In high school there was a little scandal involving the teachers and a teachers club called the Hot Tub Club. Faculty members that had hot tubs would host a weekly hot tub party with other hot tub owners. Turns out they were all getting wasted and having a swinging party every Wednesday. Some Bardis pals found out about it, and there was a huge exodus of hot tub teachers my senior year. Edit. The main people involved with the photo were reprimanded but not charged. The girl had a sit down with a counselor to discuss what happened, and we all had a big assembly to discuss the consequences that could happen if people shared those kind of images. It scared a lot of kids straight. Nobody was fired from the school for being in the hot tub club. Teachers left because it was convenient timing with the opening of another high school, and there was constant babble about it. Just for clarity, this all happened in a small town in Western Canada. By the looks of my inbox, both are not uncommon occurrences. How do you even start a swingers club with your co-workers? How does that conversation even happen? Hey Jerry, I've seen you looking up my wife, and yours isn't too bad looking either. What say you, we do some swinging next Wednesday? This happened between my sister and brother graduating, so it would have been 1996 or 1997. The HS ag teacher started dating a student at some point. Everyone knew about it, and the parents consented. Our HS was, and is, small enough to still participate in senior trips. And the ag teacher went along as a chaperone when his GF was a senior. They shared a hotel room when I believe the student was still technically a 17 years old minor. At the time I remember my parents being rather put off by it, but they still hired the guy as a summer farmhand. I don't remember if he was fired or stepped down, but by the time I made it to HS we had a different ag teacher. They got married and had a child. Divorced maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Their kid goes to our HS now. I don't know why it wasn't a huge deal at the time, but no one really raised a stink or threatened to call the authorities. Today it feels like a case of grooming by a predatory farm boy. Of course, in many states 16 is the age of consent, but almost everywhere, as far as I'm aware, has laws that state people in positions of authority, teachers, coach, policemen, clergy, etc., cannot do anything to those under their care, an abuse of authority equivalent to forcing someone. I was in 4th or 5th grade and someone sketched in the middle school bathroom not to go on school Friday or I will bang bang. This was then brought to the attention of the county and state police and we didn't have school that day and the police searched everyone's lockers for a firearm edit. This was in Pennsylvania. They were never caught, and I do not believe they found a weapon. This was also at Derry Area Middle School, while I was at Grandview for elementary. Wow, how old is that? I'm from UK so not familiar with grade system like 7/8 years old, 9 to 11 years old. Still bad FFS. Some highlights. 1. The chorus teacher got caught looking at Lolita porn on his school computer. 2. This kid had nudes of his ex that his friend sent to a bunch of people in school. But he was 18 and she was 14 or 15. So he got expelled and I believe he was charged with distributing child pornography. We had a whole assembly because of it where the cops came and told us they could see everything on our phones. 3. A kid in my grade and another girl, same girl as in the story above, actually had sex in the bathroom. I learned about it from my band teacher. Band teacher spreading rumors FFS/view 200D. Crazy stuff happens in band. I remember when I was in 7th. On the band trip, a 8th grade girl gave a blowjob to an 8th grade guy under a blanket. In high school, a girl gave a blowjob to a guy in one of the practice rooms. The one they were in wasn't usually used and could be walked by, but usually wasn't. But all practice rooms had a large window in them, so hell they definitely weren't the brightest. Kid made a chlorine bomb and threw it in the trash can at lunch. Lockdown. Bomb squad. Every single kid and faculty member out on the field in 95-degree weather for 2+ hours until parents could show up to pick up their kids. What the fuck is wrong with people? This was middle school, so he got expelled and arrested after. 2 years later in high school he's back to school, built like a fucking MMA fighter. Full beard and shaved head at 16. Nobody ever said shit to him or fucked with him in any way. What the hell happened to him in juvie? Shit goes down in juvie. That shit will change you forever, man. This kid was taking his GCSEs, important exams in England, until you get older and realize they mean fuck all. Whilst at an exam some kids got onto his phone, went onto his notes, and found a 4,000 word document consisting of his sexual fantasies with other girls in his year. Clearly paid attention in English as there was some clever wordplay comparing his cock to some world famous landmarks. The screenshots found their way into a lot of group chats. There were about 20 odd screenshots. To put into context how long it was, and it basically acted as a vague repellent for the rest of his time at the school. Important exams in England, until you get older and realize they mean fuck all. Perfectly defined. Just maths and English is quite good to get above a C, or whatever number it is now. I know someone with a degree that had to do them to do teacher training, and I have had to prove a few times in adulthood. Keep your certificates, peeps. My department lead allowed the baseball team to line up, and she gave them all blowjobs. Happened years ago, and confirmed by veteran coworkers I knew. Recently, some of the boys that graduated years ago decided to inform the proper authorities. She was transferred to another school, still works in the district. How has she got a job FFS? She probably lined up everyone in charge. That was a very convincing argument, Ms. Williams. A student that was in the grade above me, I was a senior. He had graduated, killed his girlfriend, and buried her by the train tracks right behind the school. Our football defense coordinator molested/raped a large number of young boys over a long period of time and no one did a thing about it. What happened when people found out? I'm assuming he's talking about the scandal at Penn State, Pennsylvania State University. Look up the Jerry Sandusky scandal. Gu had been doing it for years under the guise of a program where he basically brought troubled kids under his wing. He started doing this in the 70s, was first noticed in the late 90s, and in the zeros when a guy, a witness, not a victim, tried to report it to his superiors in the university. They just covered it up and took half-assed steps to prevent it from happening again. Within a few years, a victim reported it to law enforcement. A grand jury investigation was underway, and ultimately a bunch of people got fired. Sandusky got 30 to 60 years at his age, essentially a life sentence. A few others were convicted for the cover-up. The athletic program was hit with intense sanctions, which were rolled back a few years ago after the school purged everyone and everything involved. To this day, when people hear Penn State, they think of the Sandusky scandal. My brother goes to Penn State. Damn. A teacher had an affair with the students. She was arrested and released on bail. Then a few days later she sent an email to other teachers saying it wasn't an affair, but that she was actually being raped by the student and blackmailed. She even attached screenshots of texts. Later that day, she murdered her husband and committed suicide. Edit. Whoa. This has really blown up. A few people have linked articles in the comments if you are curious. Holy fuck, that's a sad and wild story. A girl in my middle school was telling people she had a hit list of people she was going to kill. Got caught with the list and was sent to a hospital for a while. She came back a few years later in high school. Edit. Seems like a lot of people had a similar occurrence in school. This was in Michigan. I also had a hit list in middle school because I was a dumbass. It was a group of about 30 guys that would come to school and play a kind of tag game. If you were tagged during the day, you were assassinated, and the game was over until the next day. My dumbass made a hit list with everyone's name on it. Needless to say, this alerted the principal. Edit. We got a talking to, but we weren't in serious trouble. We used to play a similar game using camera phones when they first came out. The kill was made by taking a photo without the victim being aware of it. Lots of us acting strangely in town, looking over shoulders and ducking behind parked cars. No list. But we were given a bit of a talking to as the college thought there was some intricate form of bullying going on. That does sound sketchy AF, but at the same time I wish I had friends to do something that cool with. Man, this sounds so depressing. But I haven't joked around like that after I turned 6. I wish I even had friends these days. Kid in my class sent an email to the White House threatening to kill Socks, the Clintons' cat. Secret Service showed up a few days later after they tracked down the computer. Tell how to avoid the draft. Oh no. Probably the time a girl gave a guy a BJ in the bathroom. The guy filmed it and sent it to his friend. His friend sent all around the school. Eventually the police had to get involved because the one guy was guilty of distribution of child pornography. Had something similar happen at my school, but since it was a private Catholic school, the girl was brought in front of the whole school board for essentially a trial and was expelled. The boys didn't even get detention. Edit. Thank you for the wholesome award, although that is the last word I would use to describe my Catholic school experience. That's fucked up. My scenario was like the opposite. One guy was expelled, the other suspended, and the girl didn't get anything. This was in a public Catholic school, so I don't know. A bunch of Catholic schools in my area had similar issues and always it was the girl expelled and nothing for the guys. I live in a DC suburb, so my parents thought it would be more progressive than other parts of the US, but it was crazy. One girl got expelled for an adult male teacher sending her sexual messages. She reported it, and they expelled her. That smells like a lawsuit to me. First week of high school. Pet class. The first section was swim. Wasn't my class, but the class after. This kid was playing a game with his friends in the water who could hold their breath the longest. He was going up for air and hit head on the pointy part of the gutter, and never made it to the surface. Friends didn't notice. Teacher didn't notice. Eventually football players coming back to the locker rooms noticed. He ended up dying. Teacher was fired, although I wouldn't fully blame him as he was attending and teaching kids who didn't know how to swim or weren't strong swimmers. One adult for over 60 kids. That's the school's fault. I understand the teacher not noticing, but the friends who were directly competing with the kid didn't notice. Must have thought he was pretty darn good at breath holding. Still holds the school record. If you are new to TattleTale TV, please subscribe. We have new videos every day. Stay tuned for more coming up next.